Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm David Bird with Reality Reimagined. I'm an award-winning photographer and Photoshop artist that specializes in fantasy composite art. Today I've got a quick tip video for you, both in photography and in Photoshop. I want to take a look at an image from a recent photo shoot. I'm adding a new line of business to Reality Reimagined, which is boudoir photography. So I want to take you through the image, the gear, the lighting, and most importantly, the storytelling that's in the image, and that's my cornerstone to how I'm approaching this new line of business. Then I want to share with you a new technique or process that I'm adding to frequency separation and how I do the work that's actually getting some really good results. So let's dive into Photoshop, take a look at this image, and get started with this tutorial today. Introductions, as always, to get us started. This is my wonderful friend Janelle. You can see more of her amazing artwork by visiting the Instagram account at the link below. To get started with photography, let's talk about the gear. I'm using the Canon R5 with the RF 50mm 1.2 prime lens. Both of these are new to my kit. Recently I used to use the EOS R with the EF 85mm 1.4 prime lens. The reason why I made the change is my good friend James Napier was recently showing me some images that he captured with his R5 and his RF 50, and they're straight out of camera and they look fully edited and retouched. The colors, the dynamic range, the detail, all of it is amazing. The optics with the RF 50, it's undeniable that it's significantly stronger than the EF line. So if it's within your budget, I do recommend making the change to RF glass. And if you can afford the RF 50mm 1.2, I do strongly recommend this lens. It is probably going to become my workhorse lens over my RF 24-70 f2.8. The 24-70 has always been a workhorse for me, both the EF and the RF, because of all the different framing options you have with that millimeter range. But the 50, the composition, the optics, the colors, everything, it was just wonderful for photography and for filmmaking. During this session, I was building essentially a portfolio to start the new line of business for Reality Reimagined. So I captured some footage with the R5 and the RF 50, and it's wonderful. The in-body image stabilization of the R5 with the image stabilization of the 50, it's a wonderful marriage of the two. And it is definitely well worth your dollars if that's something that you can afford. So I do recommend both. Now for the lighting in this, I have no strobes in this scene. There is window light coming in from the camera right off camera. And in Phoenix, Arizona, it was bright and sunny that day, and we had no shafts of light coming into the room, so we didn't have to compete with the light. So the settings for the camera was f1.2, ISO 50, and a shutter speed of 1/160th of a second, and we got this beautiful ambient light. The raw processing for this image, nothing's been done to it except a little bit of texture increasing in sharpness because 95% of the image is out of focus, which leads us to the storytelling. And that's the key cornerstone to how I'm going forward, adding boudoir to Reality Reimagined, and my preference and take on it. Through the portfolio building, we used different outfits, and of course we went through a lot of common poses that you would expect to see. But when we got to this part of it, I said I want to focus on storytelling, and I want the audience viewing these images to be a part of the story. I want to communicate different elements in the imagery that can let the audience fill in the blanks of the story that they think they're seeing. So I described the shot to her and I said, look, we're not even going to see your eyes. The critical focus of the camera is going to be on your hand, and I want you to make a gesture that's inviting them into the story. And the juxtaposition of that story could be an invitation with your hand that's inviting them in that says, hey, let's see where the story goes in a positive light. Or the gesture could be as innocuous and simple as you think you can come in here and finish this story? Oh, no, you got out of town. I didn't want to do a finger pointing. That's something I've done a lot in recent imagery. And I didn't want to do the crooking of the finger because I think that's too simple of storytelling. I wanted that juxtaposition. I wanted that ambiguous nature to the pose so the audience can make up their own story. This was the gesture she made with her hand. I locked critical focus with the LCD of the R5, got the shot and said, hey, we're done. This is perfect. So the bottom line here is no matter the genre of photography, there is always room for storytelling. And that story can come from the expressions and the poses of the subject, the landscape and the props they're using. But when you think about the journey that you want the audience to go on, what stories they can tell themselves, you may find that with all this fancy gear, all these great optics, it's a simple hand gesture that lets the audience be invited to go on their own story. Now let's dive into the Photoshop part of this, and a change to frequency separation that I've recently been doing that I really like the results. Now, if you're new to retouching or frequency separation, if you don't know what frequency separation means, take a look at the card above. It will take you to the retouching series on this channel. There's several videos covering all of the common basic techniques of retouching, so you'll be able to learn everything that you need to know to get started with that retouching. When I do frequency separation, I commonly use the mixer brush, and I will use it on the main color layer. And I will start to try to smooth all the colors together to make those even, beautiful transitions of color. And if you've seen those previous videos, you know that generally when I use the mixer brush, I will set my flow of any brush to 10%, both the basic brush as well as the mixer brush. I leave opacity at 100%. I change the flow to be 10% or less, because with a low flow, it lets me control the effect and build it up. What I've been doing is changing my flow to 20%, and I want to demonstrate why. So the mixer brush is meant to mix colors together so that you can get those combinations. And I'm using a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet, so when I touch my pen to the tablet, it's going to sample the color, use that as the base to start mixing with the other colors that it sees. Now I have a couple different brush strokes that I commonly use. One is to sample color and move that color from one place to another. The other brush stroke is more of a zigzag back and forth, and it's meant to mix the existing colors that we see there, and that's the brush stroke that inspired me to change the flow to 20%. Because what I found when I was retouching a human subject is that I had to do so much zigzagging back and forth that the colors mixed in a way that didn't really combine with the harmony of the existing colors around it. So let me demonstrate. On a flow of 10%, these two colors are red and blue. When we combine them, it should make purple. So at a flow of 10%, I'm zigzagging back and forth because I've touched the pen to the tablet. Photoshop has sampled the color, and it's trying to blend them together. And it's taking a long time, and before we get that pure color of purple that I'm looking for, it's taking too long to build it up. And that's causing negative consequences to the retouch. But if I change my flow to 20% and go back and forth with that zigzag, I'm getting purple much faster. I'm getting the target color I'm looking for much faster. So let's take a look at the image of Janelle and see how that's coming into play. Now again, I'm on the main color layer here. The detail layer has been turned off. And my goal in the retouch is simply to start smoothing some of the colors that we see on her arm. Her forearm here leading up to the only part of her body that's in critical focus. I want some of these colors to be smoothed out, and that's a color step that we need to do with the mixer brush. So mixer brush at a flow of 20%, all I have to do, and this is what I found after doing this for a little while, is just make a couple of simple broad gestures with the pen, which is the brush stroke number one that I described, instead of having to do the zigzag back and forth. So I'm going to make contact with the pen. It sampled those existing colors, and I just smooth those colors down and return. And after 2 or 3 strokes, I've gotten the smoothness of the color that I'm looking for, and it's following all of the existing colors that topographically, way the light transitions across the body, it fits to the overall color palette itself. Let me demonstrate again. So I'm going to sample here and just smooth up with 2 or 3 simple strokes. Smooth colors that transition. Let's go down the middle of her forearm now. Just a couple of simple strokes and we're done. And all the color has been smoothed. I'm hitting escape to go back to the normal orientation of the image. Bonus Photoshop tip, if you want to learn how to rotate your screen, just hit the letter R, and whatever tool you're using, it will rotate the canvas, and then it'll go back to your tool. When you're done with whatever process you need, just hit the escape key. You go back to the normal orientation. So this changed to 20%. I was against it because I thought, no, I need that really fine control of 10%. But as I learned to trust my instincts, as I learned to be able to focus on the needs of the colors that I was trying to smooth together, I saw that simply by increasing the flow to 20% made a vast difference. So the overarching lesson here is the subject of the final thoughts of this tutorial, which we're going to jump into right now. Whether it be with photography or with Photoshop, we have common practices that we go to every day in our work. Those common practices we've achieved through a lot of investment of time and of resources. So that's why we feel comfortable with them, right? The problem is if we stay too comfortable, before we've looked around twice, we're standing perfectly still. And we're not trying new things. We're not evolving. And this isn't about the existential growth of a human or the artist. It's about simply, what are we missing that could be better, that could be more efficient and produce the results that are necessary for us to continue to achieve our goals. Try something new, something as simple and as innocuous as changing the flow of your brush from 10% to 20%. Try something a little bit harder to achieve, which is buying RF glass and seeing what's possible. Find a balance that works for you, both in the comfortability of what you know you can depend upon, but also depend upon trying new things to achieve better results, more efficiency, and grow in your business, in your art, and you'll probably be better for it. That concludes this video for today. If you like the content you found in the video, please give the video a like and consider subscribing to the channel because new content debuts each week in photography and Photoshop education. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell icon to be notified of that new content when you return to the YouTubes. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, I'll see you out there in the world of Photoshop.